All right, folks, and welcome to this special edition of the Franklin County podcast. We normally do this on the People's Trust Company channel, but today we got invited into the St. Albans Facebook group. I'm just going to check real quick and make sure that one is loaded. Um, Streaming software. They make it difficult on Facebook groups, but not Facebook pages. So let me just make sure that this is ready to go. And for some reason, the key's there, everything else is there. Post in group, save changes. Yep. I don't think it's going to fly on autopilot, Tim. So Lori says we're live on Facebook. 1 second. But are we live on the St. Albans group page? Well, we are going to continue without that. My apologies to everyone. The software streams beautifully to Facebook pages, but apparently Facebook groups, it makes you do it manually with a streaming key, but we're just going to continue regardless. So we can sort that out a little later or next time. So today we have a special guest on the podcast, Tim Smith, who's a father, a dad, a husband, a mayor, and then basically the person in Franklin County that knows all about business in Franklin County. So Tim, I'm going to work on the graphics here. There's a flip button that I'm not able to locate, but I'm going to put you right on the hot seat to do a quick introduction of yourself, and then I'm going to dive right into the questions about St. Albans and Franklin County.
Sure. So probably the first thing, Jay, is I'm the ex-mayor as of last night.
Oh, that's correct. My apologies, Trudy.
So yeah, Trudy Coffey has been sworn in and is moving forward and will do a great job. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Albans City and Franklin County, born and raised for sure. And I've served as the St. Albans City Rec Director for 9 or 10 years before I took a little sabbatical and went out west. Owned an office supply store with my brother Mike up in Newport, and the job now, Executive Director of Franklin County Industrial Development. I'm in my 25th year. So I think I agree with that. I'm probably well versed in what's going on around the county. A lot of great things for sure. And as you said, father of 3, we're on the odd years, 15, 17, 19, junior and freshman at BFA, and then a freshman in college. So still a little active for sure with their schedules, and nothing better. Nothing, as you know, nothing better than. So that's about it for me. I'm married to Denise, maiden name Bellevaux, from Charlotte, Vermont, and she's the executive director for the Vermont Council on Rural Development. So I think that's about the big picture.
So you're only working halftime then, because you're kind of bored and not much going on in your life. All right. Let's dive right in here, Tim. And before we start talking about where Franklin County is going, let's talk about what our position is currently in the state, and maybe just a quick synopsis of some of the attributes of Franklin County as far as business-wise, growth-wise, economic-wise. Where are we right now as maybe a state of the union, if you will?
Yeah, I think Franklin County is in great shape, much better shape than other counties across the state for sure. We do have a growing population, unlike other counties who are losing population. Economy is strong, workforce is strong, and as you probably know, my colleague in the regional economic development business is Frank Coffey, who does the same thing in Burlington. And Frank, they have a little more money than we do, so he's done a number of studies. And one of the studies they did was, what is the impact of, which I believe is us, Chittenden County and Grand Isle, on the economy. And I think, if I get my numbers correct here, I think we're responsible for 47% of the state's economy in this region, which is huge. You know, when we went through the recession back in 2007 and 8 and 9 probably, we had the least job loss. So we've positioned ourselves pretty well. I think we have a good assortment of business, manufacturing, healthcare, education, government jobs, retail, service industry. So I think we're pretty well positioned at this time, as we know that can change quickly, as we learned with COVID. But even during COVID, we managed, if you remember the terminology, essential. Many of our businesses are essential when it comes to manufacturing, mainly due to the fact that many of them produce food. So our number one manufacturing sector is the food sector. Barry Callebaut, Ben & Jerry's, Perigo, and the list goes on. So those were essential during COVID, and we were fortunate to have them. So they continued to employ during that time. And so the big picture is, and I'm speaking probably more so from prior years. The most recent is that we have been impacted by the lack of Canadian traffic, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit more. But that there's been a hit to our economy because of their distaste for some of the rhetoric going on, and tariffs and whatnot. So.
For sure. So those are a couple of very huge markers and indicators of nearly 50% of the economy driven by just this northwest corner. So that's very impressive. And I knew that we were, had substantial amount of larger businesses. I did not put my finger on that they were all in the food business, but it seemed quite obvious after you rattled off that list of Barry Callebaut, Ben & Jerry's, and so on, that makes perfect sense. So that's a good snapshot of where we are. But more importantly, if there's a lot of stuff happening here in this northwest corner of Vermont, where are we going? What are you going to, let's first say, what are your predictions of the next 10 years of where you see either new business or families moving in and along those lines? And maybe we can go down a rabbit hole or two on one of those.
Yeah, for sure. So the first one that comes to mind is manufacturing. So what I failed to mention earlier is that we are moving a little bit on the scale, a little bit more towards technology. We have Liquid Measurements in Georgia, which is a great business, and they do fuel gauges for all aircrafts. Quite the niche, actually. And then, of course, Beta. I didn't mention Beta in the Burlington area, South Burlington. I think they're up to 900 employees. We do have a portion of their business here in the former Energizer building, and they haven't really taken off yet, but the space has been renovated and ready to go. So we're hoping that that's going to really take off in the coming year. So and that would fall under the technology piece for sure, and that's an area that we've been lacking over the years. But hopefully, between Beta, Liquid Measurement, and a couple others, that we'll continue to grow in that area. Once again, I'm going to refer to Frank and GBIC. They did a study 7 years ago about the availability of industrial space in Chittenden County. And basically the study revealed that in 7 years, so 7 years ago to now, Chittenden County was going to run out of industrial space. So they were going to need to start looking elsewhere, interested businesses in Vermont, in the Northwest. And I think we're prepared for that. We've had our industrial park. It hasn't moved as quickly as we had hoped, but I think in the long run, in 10 years, I think we'll be sitting pretty good with the industrial park and the parcels that we sell and the jobs that are created moving forward. So I'm really optimistic about that. We've positioned ourselves well. I had to do a little financial report for the city as one of my last duties. And I think the city of St. Albans has positioned itself well when it comes to infrastructure, water, wastewater, stormwater. I think we've really positioned ourselves in a top-notch spot, and that's going to pay dividends as well as these businesses. And home building is another hot topic. All are going to need water and wastewater, so I think we've positioned ourselves well to accommodate. And then the other thing we've done, we just received this grant from the state. It's called the GROW grant, and it's focused on outreach to families, individuals who may want to consider moving to Vermont. There's like we have 12 RDCs around the state and throughout the counties, then we also have other grant recipients that are focused on the same thing. So we're working right now on the web presence, and once that's up and running, we'll be doing some outreach, and we hope that people will get on the website, and basically it's outreach to our office, and we will connect them and answer their questions relative to moving to Vermont. So what's the housing market, what's the education, what's recreation like. So we will be addressing that in hopes that some people move, because we're going to need more folks, as you know, Jay, being on the school board. To just make it easy, we're losing about 1,000 kids a year from our school systems. Back in '95, I think it was, we were at 105,000 students, and now we're at 73,000. So the easy math is you can plan on losing about 1,000 students every year, right? As it trends now. So that's going to be, that part of that GROW grant is to move people, get people to think about moving to Vermont. Hopefully they do. We'll see if we're successful in the next 10 years.
And so, Tim, that 1,000 kids a year, is that a statewide number that you're referring to?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Statewide number for sure.
And it's just cumulative. It's on top of every year. It's 1,000 freshman through senior. That's 4,000 when those four go up and out.
Right.
Well, that sounds like a pretty proactive method of what you're doing and how you kind of reinventing yourself, or not reinventing yourself, but pivoting to the need of the businesses of the area, because the businesses need employees. And now you're doing not only trying to recruit businesses to come to Franklin County, you're also recruiting the potential employees of that business. So that's very ingenious, in my opinion, of doing everything you can to help the businesses that want to relocate here have the services and the products, the people, everything that they need to be able to set up shop here in northern Vermont.
Yeah, I think, and just to give credit where credit's due, so we did 2022, we sort of did a strategic plan relative to our organization. And what we did, we pulled together a number of forums relative to a variety of different topics. I think we had 10 different groups discussing education, healthcare, recreation, jobs, millennials. We had a whole list, and I can't help but think of Jake Holscheider, who's the president of president of Derringer. He was on one of those committees, and his comment then was, why are we investing so much energy trying to attract new business when we don't have the population to fill the jobs that we have now? And our organization took that to heart, and not that we're going to stop trying to recruit, because it's still going to be crucial for the economy, but we sort of refocused our energies more towards place-based quality of life, that type of stuff. And as you may know, we bought a downtown block in Enosburg and rehabbed it, and there's 2 retail stores in it, as well as office space and 12 apartments. And that's been huge for Enosburg to sort of make it more vibrant. So we've changed our ways a little bit, but still in the background, we're still recruiting business and trying to generate some activity in the industrial park. So it's by reaching out to community members, that's a message we heard loud and clear. And as you know, there's just not, whether we don't have enough people is one thing, but do we have enough people who choose not to work? That's one other aspect of it.
Very, very interesting, Tim. So, over the 25 years, you have single-handedly or with all sorts of support in the area, been able to secure a fair amount of industrial businesses to locate here in the county. But you talked about you kind of, this is a little bit of the crystal ball of Tim Smith's in his possession, and you kind of alluded to the fact that you think in the next 10 years your industrial park is going to be pretty close to filled. Are you in talks now? I know you probably can't, if we're not reveal any details, but can you give us any indication of what you might be looking at, or how much traffic or interest you're getting over the next, say, 3 years of potential companies wanting to relocate either in the industrial park or somewhere else? And what are they looking for?
Yeah. So the key to that is our relationship with Canada, for sure, or Quebec. There's I tell people all the time, Jade, fall and spring are sort of like the busy time when people start thinking about expansion or relocation or whatever. And historically, we get 3 or 4 calls in the spring and 3 or 4 in the fall. Our issue right now is that we pretty much don't have any vacant space. We're trying to figure out how to put up a spec building, but the construction cost is so much higher than what it would have been 10 years ago. But so we really don't have anything to show unless they want to build their own building, which is something, as I said, something we're trying to work through. And the 2 or 3 buildings that are vacant are older and need a lot of work. One would be the former Swan Lucio Farm, some people may know, or Swan Valley cheese plant in the Swanton Industrial Park. And then there's a former Vermont brick building up off from 78 as you head to Highgate. And that is in need of a lot of tender loving care for sure. But I'm a big advocate. I think that building could be rehabbed a lot cheaper than building a newer one. And we've had the discussion with multiple businesses about that, but you really need to have a vision, and some don't want to tackle that. But and as I said, 3 or 4 calls each season. Most of them, almost all of them, are Canadian businesses. And now we just got our first call back beginning of the year of a Canadian company looking to come to the U.S. Ironically, it's to sort of get away from the tariffs for sure, but we're still in discussions on that one. But yeah, the Canadians are, you look at our business model. Mylan was a Canadian. The genesis of Mylan was a Canadian business. It was Jonigan. So Jonigan made high-end liquor labels, and had a coating, and it's that coating which attracted Mylan for their transdermal patches. So it sort of grew from a Canadian company. Peerless, obviously. You have bariatrics in the Georgia Industrial Park. They got Green Mountain Knitting or Calco in Swanton. You had K-Tech, which did sell, and then they closed the doors, but K-Tech up in Richford. So a lot of our growth over the years, Barry Callebaut was a Canadian company, have been Canadian companies that chose to, and the reason they do that is they like the close access to their main office. If there's an issue, They can send staff down, address the issue, go home at night, go back to their house. They're not flying to the Carolinas. They're not flying to Detroit. They're down and back in a day, and it works out well for their organization. So, um, yeah, we need that activity, cross-border activity, to loosen up, and that's going to make a difference for sure.
So that would be my revelation number two on this call. The first was the concentration of food businesses here, and the second one was the concentration of Canadian industry. I thought perhaps this would have been people relocating from other states, and I knew there was some Canadian interest. I didn't realize it was heavy as that much of a concentration. We do have a fair number of viewers that are watching live. And I just want to tell folks that, and I should have done this a little bit earlier, but that graphic threw me off. I've been trying to fix it ever since. That if you guys and gals, if you have a question for Tim, and if you're watching on the People's Trust Company Facebook page, all you have to do is enter a comment into that as if it was just a regular Facebook comment. It gets populated over here, and I can ask Tim the question that you want. I know we only have him for another 10 minutes. I want to be respectful of his time, but I also want to get all the the good questions that you folks have as well. So Tim, I guess we've danced around it a little bit, but now it's coming to full head. Is our the vast majority of the businesses that have relocated here have been Canadian businesses, and now we have all of these tariffs that has disrupted the market. How bad are the tariffs hurting your business in particular, and what do we do about it?
Well, a couple of things I've learned recently, Jay, is that the company we're looking at that potentially could move to the KTEC building in Richford contacted us. And my impression of the tariffs was mainly raw materials, right? So if you're shipping wood in, if you're shipping sheet metal in for value added production, if you will, I thought that's where the tariffs were impacting business. What we learned from the business looking to potentially come to Richford is the metal of which their machinery is made out of is also subject to the tariffs. So for them to move their machinery from Canada to the U.S., they were going to face 500,000 in tariffs based on the weight of the machine and the fact that it was metal. So that metal is one of those categories that that is subject to tariffs. It doesn't matter if it's in sort of what I would say raw material phase or in machinery phase, they're going to still be. So we've been doing some homework on that. I just sent out an email trying to connect with the XM Bank folks that might have some solutions or loans that might be able to work. So that's one for sure. And the other thing that I just learned, I was on a webinar, I think Derringer was one of the sponsors of it, is even though the Supreme Court has ruled that the tariffs are illegal, if companies want to get the amount back that they paid for, the process will take them, based on this webinar, 2 to 4 years. So when I think me and others, when they heard, well, they can get reimbursed for the tariffs they paid, my thinking is, okay, send the U.S. government a bill and they'll send you a check back and things will be hunky-dory for now. But that's it. The process, there's a lot of legal costs. There's a lot of representation from legal firms to get through. Then it needs to be approved by Customs and Immigration. And then the process is much more extensive than anyone would guess. And they're saying you could plan on getting your money back in 2 to 4 years. And we're not talking, for many of these firms, we're not talking $1,000 or $10,000. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, and they're going to be sitting waiting for the return on those for 2 to 4 years. So those are two things that I think are crucial. Um, the fact that there's still a tariff, 15%, it seems like to be where where it's headed. I think is still a deterrent. Um, so yeah, I don't have much to offer and what the impact, what the business thinking is relative to making a move at this time and juncture.
That is absolutely crazy to me now that I'm trying to grab my thing here. Um, that it didn't take 2 to 4 years to pay the tariff.
No, it didn't. No.
And you would think it would be relatively easy as here's my receipt, reimburse me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second thing is that company that you were talking about moving into the KTEC building up in Richford, that they're going to weigh the equipment and then levy the tariff based on the weight. You would think a pre-existing piece of machinery that might be 5 or 10 years old would be exempt to that type of thing, or the value.
Yeah, and the piece of that is right that Trump's theory was we would bring more onshore manufacturing and create more jobs. So this is a prime example. They do want to move to the U.S. to avoid the tariffs for their product they're making, yet the tariff is a deterrent now for them coming here. You know, so it sort of backfired against the theory that we would generate more jobs and whatnot. So it's a vicious circle for sure. So
we talk about an unintended consequence, because
yeah.
I don't think anybody.
I never gave it a thought. I don't think anyone gave it a thought. I've surprised a lot of folks as I've reached out to our delegation, whether it was Senator Welch, Sanders, or Congresswoman Ballot, and they just they didn't see that coming either. You know, and and I've pitched this to the delegation as well, but it doesn't go too far. My thinking has always been, if we are in fact charging tariffs, why don't we set up a grant program for manufacturers to get grants or low interest loans to purchase new machinery, to update their manufacturing, create jobs. If that is in fact the intent to create jobs, then we should be reinvesting back into our manufacturing sector for sure.
And absolutely right, Tim. And that wouldn't be very complicated to do that. Even in my little business that I had started years ago, there was a fellow from Montpelier walked in the door, and I hadn't had my first employee yet, and they were trying to increase. You know, back then unemployment was 7% or so, and they were trying to do everything they could, and they subsidized my first employee to try before you buy type of thing, and then they gradually weaned me off the assistance over 2 or 3 months, and I was like, oh great, it gave me the start, and it worked, and I kept that person and added some more. Or other situations where you get the incentive to, like with a Vita loan application, the individual applying for that, part of Vita's evaluation is how many jobs is it going to add to the Vermont economy, and that's one of the indicators that they're always looking for. Why wouldn't the federal government? I guess that answers my own question right there. Is they're so big and move so slow, but that would be a very simple thing to do. Is it's going to move the needle for us quickly. Make it happen.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think the system's in place. You know, there's 7 territories around the country for the Economic Development Administration. They do grants all the time. I think they could handle this aspect. Someone applies for new machinery, grant them the money, certify that the machinery was received and jobs created, and then move on. But that's probably too simple.
I agree. Tim, I'm 5 minutes over what I asked you to be here for, but I think I could go another hour and drill down a few more of these rabbit holes to get some some other details and knowledge of what's going on. I'll give one last plea to the folks in the audience. If you want to ask Tim a question, just type it in to the comment section of, if you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, it'll populate over here and we can ask Tim. And then Tim, I guess I'll ask you one final question. And we didn't rehearse, plan what we were going to talk about today. Is there, when you agreed to come on the program, was there one question you were hoping I was going to ask that I've not asked yet today? And can you speak to that?
Maybe a little bit more about FCIDC.
Sure.
Quickly, we've been around for 52 years. When the organization was around, or was not, when it was created 52 years ago, unemployment in the county was 12%. So he didn't have any manufacturing. He didn't have industrial parks. The manufacturers were basically Energizer and Lucille Farms making cheese. Sweat Cummings up in Richford. The pulp, what we still call the pulp mill in Sheldon, and probably Franklin Foods in Enosburg, and that was pretty much it. So I think our organization, not because of me, but the leadership, I have a board of 18 volunteers that sort of lead the way. And, the industrial park in the town wasn't there until 1974. We've increased that grand list for the town by $40 million. Tax dollars amount to about $900,000 a year to the town. And that goes down another rabbit hole. The town has chosen not to, so we get funding from every community in the county based on a pro rata basis. The town chose not to fund us for next year, of the belief that they're not getting their $12,500 worth. So
you said that with a straight face. That was impressive.
So it's too bad. Every other town but the St. Albans town supports us, and I think we do a great job. Like I said, we did we built 4 Peerless buildings in the industrial park since I've been here. We just wrapped up the Pearly block. We're going to move. We got a meeting up in Richford to see about renovating one of their buildings. We've kept jobs. We bought the Leader buildings 3 or 4 years ago to keep those jobs here and help them pay down some debt. We do a lot, and I'm probably not the best at promoting what we do. And I think we're sort of making a concerted effort to try to be a little bit better at that. So,
wow, that's that's amazing in itself. Well, we're well beyond the time that I asked you to commit for this. So
no problem, Jay.
I really appreciate you coming on, and I think you're right that you have not rang your bell loud enough, Tim. But listening to just a little bit of that of the huge impact that you've had personally in Franklin County is substantial. And you look at all of the things that you've done. That's quite an incredible amount of accomplishments, of which the average Joe can drive around town and look and see and feel for what you've done, and the people the 18 members that help you, your volunteer members, and everybody else that you network with. I mean, that's a substantial impact in the greater St. Albans area, Franklin County area. That's quite impressive. Congratulations on that, Tim.
Thank you, Jay. And once again, I've got a great board, that they're willing to take risks to make things happen, and we've been successful, and we have a great relationship with most of the towns and communities for sure. So.
Yeah, very good. All right, sir, I am going to let you go because I probably delayed your lunch by an extra half hour. But again, I appreciate you coming on, and I hope we can do this again. And I'm going to get to work on debugging this graphic and why we didn't populate on the St. Albans page group. So,
yeah, thank you for having me, Jay. I would be glad to join you anytime. Just let me know.
All right, most excellent. Thanks again, Tim, and we will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jay.